Born Primitive Outdoor is proud to partner with Montana Knife Company, Marsupial Gear, Evolution Outdoors, Sheep Feet, and Capture Gear. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to our sponsors. What's crack-a-lackin', everyone? Aron Snyder with the Born Primitive Outdoor podcast, and I have my little buddy. I don't know how long. We've been friends for a while. Levi Mayfield. I met Levi on an elk hunt with South Cox. One of the funniest little fuckers I know. Very well-rounded. What's going on, dude?
Oh, not much, man. Living the dream. It's hot, though. I'm in Oklahoma, and it's hot. Obviously I know Levi for a while, but Levi's a taxidermist, video, photo guy, who does construction as well, many other things. But what to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, like any podcast, and then kind of we'll talk about how you and I first met. Oh, not much. Let's see. I know me and you met in the video world, because that's where me and you got started was with me doing video and pictures and stuff. I had a taxidermy shop for like 15, 16 years, and I've done construction all my life, and I finally I gave up the taxidermy and went full-fledged construction again. So I've been doing that for a while now. It's just building homes and building shops, and then that's about it. I mean, the video stuff has slowed down a little bit because I stay so busy with construction, but I still always make time for sure in September, October to run around with cool cats like you and video and see what you can screw up on the side of the mountain or not.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, because Levi is going to be video, and my buddy Chris Horn and I's elk hunt here in Wyoming. But yeah, I met you with South, but you've videoed for Derek Wolfe and others as well.
Yeah, I did the video before I met you. I did it with Trevon Stolzfus for 3 or 4 years, and then got hooked up with South, and then that's how I got hooked up with you. So like, I've been doing short films and video stuff for at least, I was thinking about it this morning, man, got to be pushing like close to 8 to 10 years, because I've known you for at least, and you've been buddies for at least 4 or 5 now. And I know I've done it for a handful of years before me and you even got hooked up with each other.
Yeah. One thing I remember your vision sticks out in my mind as much. Well, probably how funny you are and your vision both stick out. I've never seen someone with vision like your eyes are insane. You'd be like, you see, it's right there. I'm like, no, mother, I don't see shit.
Our first hunt together was like, I remember going into it because I was like, Snyder, I know, can be kind of pushy, and I know I can be kind of pushy. I was like, this is going to be really interesting to see. And I was right on your ass when we was trying to make a move on that first elk that morning. I'm like, he's right there. Don't move, because I don't see him. I'm like, he's right there. He's staring at us. And like, you was getting mad at me because, hell, you didn't know who I was, and you're just like, who is this guy? Then all of a sudden, when the bull, like we busted the bull, you was like, oh shoot, I never even saw him right there. I was like, dude, I've been telling you for 5 minutes he was standing right there.
I remember that was, man, because we were, I'm sure South will listen to this. One of the things that makes South the hardest working human that I know, also when he gets something in his brain, like maybe to go to a specific area, we're going to that area and nothing's stopping us. Like, we may pass up elk along the way. Like, that dude gets tunnel vision, and that's what makes him work hard. We were trying to get, we're passing up elk to go to elk, I think, that morning. There's a ton of elk in there.
Because the year prior, me and him had gotten on a bunch of elk up the canyon from where we were passing them elk at. And in his mind, he was like, if we get up there, all the elk on the bottom side are going to be up here in the mid-morning anyway. So let's just pass all these and get up there. And me and you and Mike was with us that morning. We were just like, what are we doing? Like, can we hunt right here? There's elk bugling like crazy.
Yeah, that ended up being a pretty insane hunt, because that ended up being the year when South and I both killed elk the same day, because you videoed that was that the 5 foot or the 6 foot bull? That was whatever. It was close.
Yeah, it was super close.
And then Mike and I ended up going up there to help you guys, and then there was elk screaming. I'm like, South's a grown ass man. He's got 2 dudes with him. We're gonna keep hunting. We'll find him later. Like, let's go. But we ended up killing 2 elk and got both elk out. They were 14 miles, 16 miles.
I think ours was 11, and I think yours was 14.
Yeah, and
something like that.
And got them out the next day, which was rough.
Yeah, that pack out kind of sucks. We've done it. I've done it once without llamas or mules, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I told South when we was doing it, I was like, you're gonna have to get llamas or mules or something. Like, I'm not making a 24-mile circle twice, going up and down, getting an elk out in one day. I'm just not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, when we did it, we ended up doing, you guys probably did 18 miles that day. I bet I did 28, and I bet South did 32.
Something like that, yeah.
It was insane, like a lot of walking. But when we went out, we had one llama, and it laid up on us, and then I ended up throwing shit from the llama on my back. It was bad. It was bad for everybody. There was nothing good about getting 2 elk out at one time that far in.
No, it wasn't. It was not fun.
So I can't remember who I was talking to. So Chris Horn and I were scouting the last few days, and super good friend of mine, great dude. We're talking about elk hunting, and I was like, talking about different elk I've killed or, whatever. Right. And I was, talked about that pack out, and then anyway, I led up to the fact. I remember probably one of the most memorable elk hunting moments in my life had nothing to do with an elk. We were all at the end of that basin. You had to go take a shit. And now I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I know people have told me you've said this. Like, I think people have a preconceived notion that I can be difficult to hunt with. And I think would you say I'm difficult to hunt with?
Sometimes, not always.
Yeah. So what would you say is probably the most difficult thing to hunt with me?
With you?
Yeah.
Well, really, I mean, honestly, anymore it's not. Like, when I first started doing the backcountry elk hunts, it started with South and you. And honest to God, I always had this notion in my head when I first started doing backcountry hunts, because Lane Walter got me hooked up with South. And I remember the first one I went on, I was like, oh my God, I know South does all these backcountry hunts. So I worked out and ran like my ass off all summer long, like made sure I was in top notch shape and did great. And then the next year you were going, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have freaking Snyder, and he's going to walk my freaking tail in the ground. And it was easier with you because if people don't know it, South is a beast. Like you said, if he gets an idea in his head that he's going to do something, he's doing it. And if that means we're going over the top of 2 mountains at 12,000 feet, he's going to do that.
And
because
he did.
I know what you're leading up to at that moment, because when I got back to you, you started laughing because it wasn't Mike that year. It was who was with us that year?
Steven with me.
Yeah, Steven was with us. And you're like, hey, what do you think about going over that mountain right there? I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I looked at Steven and looked back at you, and y'all both just kind of grinned. I was like, oh my God, we're going over that mountain, aren't we? And it wasn't you. It was South. He was like, oh yeah, we're going over it. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, because I with what, like, this is not South, he's just a machine, right? The dude.
Oh, 100%.
And I've said that multiple times when I've been interviewed. You interviewed me once, and what is Joel Osteen? You got to love people for who they are, not who you want them to be. So you got to take the good with the bad. So I would say overall, I'm pretty laid back hunting. I can get frustrated or whatever, but like overall, I'm fairly laid back, and I try not to do anything that's stupid. And when I say stupid, what I deem is unnecessary, like, work, right? I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So we were already a long ways in, and Levi's taking a shit, and South's like, you know what? I'm going to go up over the top of here. Then we're going to come all the way down this ridge line to get the wind right. And we're going to hunt our way all the way back up and turn around and come back. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a fucking horrible idea. I'm not doing that. And Steven and I was like, well, we'll just hunt down here. You come back. And I think I'd slapped you on the back and was like, well, you're going to have a good day. And yeah, he hiked your asses all the way up over the top of that. And you guys, I think you went over 13,000 feet to get there, didn't you?
It was something like that. And keep in mind, I remember I had hyperextended my knee the first day we were there.
Yeah.
So I had a effed up knee the whole time we was there. And I have never, South is one of the best dudes that you'll ever meet. I'll give him crap all the time, but he is one of the best dudes you'll ever meet. We got halfway up that mountain, and I was just like, why are we doing this? And he was like, what? And I remember the conversation because I got mad. I was like, why are we doing this? And he's like, oh, we're going over the mountain. We're going to hunt them elk on the other side. I was like, yeah, but we're leaving elk in this valley to go over there and hunt those elk. And remember that year, the elk just weren't bugling hardly at all.
Not like normal.
And he was like, well, these elk aren't talking. I'm like, yeah, but we've hunted that valley over there twice, and the elk aren't talking over there either. And, dude, I got mad. Had a little temper tantrum, cussed him a little bit. We get all the way over, and on our way back, we get to the top, and we're fixing to descend back to camp. And he looks at me, and he was like, man, I hate to say it, but you were right. We shouldn't have came up here. And then I felt bad, and I was like, I had to apologize to him. I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry. Like, you hired me to do this. I shouldn't have been cussing you out and being all mad about it. I do what you want to do because you're paying me to be up here. So my bad. Like, I'll go wherever you want to go. It's no big deal. I won't cuss you out anymore. I'll just take it with a grain of salt and hike my ass off, I guess.
Well, I just don't think people understand, not to make this podcast about South, but I mean, it's worth mentioning that how tough of a little dude he is, because he doesn't work out as much as others because he works so hard at his normal job. So he basically goes into that hunt with very little exercise. I don't know if he plays racquetball or hikes or whatever, but I mean, he's working so much. That last hunt, though, I had just gotten back of like 12 weeks in BC. I was pretty beat up, but like in the morning, like I remember the one morning the evening, I said, hey, South, you want to take tomorrow morning and just chill? I think that was the morning because I think Steven grabbed him because we were stumbling around in that swamp in the dark, sweating our balls off. Because when he takes off in the morning, he just goes like 100 miles an hour up the trail, like tripping on shit, and just doesn't stop. And I just don't think people realize how hard he is as an individual, like mentally strong. Like it is. You just don't see that. People, you read a book by its cover, South's just an ordinary dude, right? Not saying ordinary, but you know what I mean? He's just a guy.
Yeah.
Fucking guy's just tough. He's just tough.
Yeah, because remember when we were hiking up that one morning, we stopped once for, I think Steven took one of his jackets off, and we took off. And finally, we were like 3 miles in trying to get up to the top of the canyon. And I stopped everybody, and I looked at South. I said, hey, are we in a hurry? He's like, what? I was like, it's 2 hours before daylight. Why are we running? And Steven's just sitting there laughing. I was like, I said, Snyder, you get in the front and you lead the pack. I said, I don't really feel like running up this mountain. And Steven starts laughing, and he was like, I was thinking it, I just wasn't going to say
it. Yeah, no, I remember. It's fun back in that area, though, but that area is rough. It is difficult because you're climbing no matter, what you do.
Yeah, 100%.
But so, as far as on the taxidermy side of things, I mean, how old are you now?
34. So
you started that young? Like, what got you into that?
We had a taxidermist in Hugo, where I'm from, and he was an older guy, and he did taxidermy ever since I was a kid. I remember him doing it, and I shot a decent whitetail, like 115, 120 inch whitetail one time, and I wanted to mount it, and I went to him when I was like 15, and I was like, hey, will you teach me how to do this? I'm intrigued and want to see how to do it. He's like, yeah, sure. So I've done that, and then his place was kind of one of those spots, like when it come September, October, November, everybody was always at his shop. Like everybody'd go over there and drink coffee and hang out, and he'd mount deer right there. And it was just, to me, it was just cool. Cause I mean, I'm 34, but everybody I hang out with is 10, 15 years older than me. I've always been that way. And he taught me how to do that. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing taxidermy. And he was like, well, go to school for it because they can teach you more than I am. So I went to school for it, like graduated, and 2 weeks later I was at taxidermy school doing that. And I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to open a shop. So I opened a shop and started doing that because I loved it. But regardless what anybody says, maybe out west a little bit different. Where I'm at in the part of the world, there's not a lot of money in taxidermy. Just because, I mean, we're pretty much only whitetail. We're just now starting to get where people are doing like bear and stuff like that around here, but it's just mostly whitetail. So it was just hard to make a living at it. And I was just like, you know what, I got to make a better living and take some stuff off my plate. So I just said, I still do it a little bit. Like I do mine and all my friends and stuff like that. I'll take in, 10, 15 deer a year versus 100, 150. So just kind of got burned out on it too for doing it so long.
So anybody looking at getting into taxidermy, other than don't get into it, what would your suggestion be?
Find a really good taxidermist that will teach you, or go to a really good taxidermy school. I would really say more find somebody that will teach you, because the taxidermy schools are kind of a joke. They teach you like your basics, and then you got to learn everything else afterwards. So it's just better to find somebody that's just really good at it. And
it's kind of apprentice
just let them, just apprentice under them and learn how to do it that way. It's fun. It really is. It's cool doing it and making an animal come back to life. But it's just one of those things. And I'm not very good working by myself. So I was in the shop by myself all the time, and I get bored, and I can only talk to myself so much. So that don't do much good either.
What have you done much of like mountain goats or elk, or mostly just deer?
I've done quite a few elk, some longhorn. I've never done any mountain goats, but we're in the area where like Mount Aldad and exotics from Texas ranches and stuff like that. So Aldad, Axis, stuff like that. But most of the stuff we always did was what I always did was mostly whitetail, and then some like pheasant and stuff like that, a few bobcats and stuff like that, but nothing super huge.
Yeah, I gotcha. So if somebody was getting into it, to me, it would seem like you'd want to see who's around you, how much competition you have, and then the general pricing, because it definitely changes regionally quite a bit, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it changes a lot. Like from what I was doing, just where I'm at in Southeast Oklahoma versus going to, just South Texas, it changes a lot. You could get a lot more and make a whole lot more money out, either out west or even in Texas, something like that, because there's just way more work in it. So you can get way more clientele than where I'm at, because it's just whitetail right here pretty much.
Yeah, and what are you getting for a shoulder mount for a whitetail there?
I think when my last year, I think I was doing $650 or $700 for a shoulder mount, which is about the going rate, I think. I mean, you get some guys down in South Texas. Man, some of them guys are doing like $1,200 a deer head, and they're still getting 300 to 500 deer heads a year.
Yeah. So, how much of a pain in the ass is it for like dealing with getting the hides back from the tannery and all that kind of crap? Because you got to send the hides in, don't you? I
did a lot of my own tanning because if I wanted a really good tan, I had to send it freaking 10 hours away to get it tanned. And it would take, 6-8 months to get your hides back. So I did a lot of my own tanning, figuring out that right process. And it took a trial and error trying to get the right good tan for everything. But after I did it, it was one of those things. I would send hides to somebody, and when I got them back, I had to clean the hides up more and shave them down a little bit more. And I was just like, I'm already putting work into it, so I'm just going to tan my own hides and do that. So, but it's a long process. It's longer than what people think it is. It's a whole lot more process than what people think.
Yeah, I mean, I only know that now from working up north so much. But people, I've done videos on caping out, animals, and for the most part, like, when you're down in the lower 48, you usually do a pretty good hack job. There's meat and fat on the hide because no one gives a shit, and the taxidermist kind of gets screwed. But like when you're up north, it's got to be, everything's off that thing because you salt it, and it's gonna be sitting there for quite some time, right? And so
Yeah.
the caping jobs down here are horrific, and you would get fired up north doing that kind of a caping job. But when you do so, like with what whitetail elk or whatever, what do you suggest to guys? How do they do the cuts? Like, how should they cape that out, and how much can a taxidermist fix?
Man, it depends. Because like for us, I know like whitetail, they just bring the head in and you skin it, and you do like what they call the Y incision on the back right behind the ears and antler burrs. You do a Y incision to get it off of it. But all the Western stuff, if you shoot a freaking elk 8 miles from your truck, you got to pack it out, and you don't want to pack that head because it's an extra, 10, 15 pounds that you're going to pack. So I know most of the taxidermists out west, they don't really bother them, so they just cut right down, right where the shoulder blades start, and just cut all the way up the back of the neck until you hit where you make that Y incision in between the ears going to the antler burrs, and then just take your time skinning the head out because it's easy to cut holes in the face and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's pretty much what you were doing mostly with the mountain goats up in BC, wasn't you? Doing it like that?
So, generally let me rewind. Normally lower 48, whether you know how to, whether you do it right or wrong or whatever, generally I do a dorsal cut, go up to the base of the neck, kind of tube out the legs. I don't do any cuts towards the chest plate, right, or the brisket. I don't cut down there. I cut around the leg and kind of tube it out, cut the head off, and the head will stay on, the skull stays inside the elk. If you know what you're doing, you do the wide cut and just flush out the face. Up there, you're deknuckling, you're turning the ears, you're turning the nose, you're turning everything. But
you had to turn the ears and thing up there?
Horrible, dude. Yeah, you got to turn it all. And if you haven't done a moose, you haven't lived, you should do at least one moose in your life and turn out the nose and the ears on a moose. It's great. Split the lips, do the whole 9 yards. But for people who listen, did you lose me? You said?
I don't know what happened.
I don't either. Where'd you lose me at?
You said you were deknuckling the head and stuff. Deknuckling everything and then turning the ears. I didn't know you had to turn the ears and nose and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Somebody that don't know what they're doing, that's going to be almost impossible because that's the most tedious part is the turning the ears and getting the cartilage and everything and turning the nose and stuff like that.
Yeah, so like if you learn what you're doing, which I would suggest everyone learn this, it's a good idea to know how, but turning the nose and the ears and splitting the lips are kind of a pain in the butt. So at the very least, to me, and then I'm going to say, and then you correct me, if you kill an elk, base of the neck, go down all the way down the dorsal, all the way down to the tail, split it, right? And then mid body, go a little bit farther back to give the taxidermist something to work with. If you're not that far away, you don't have to, you can go just in front of the rear quarter and go around, but give the taxidermist enough to work with. What I do after the dorsal cut, I make a cut left and right, so I have a marker on both sides. Go all the way around, and then that way it helps you, have somewhat of a straight line when you get back to the dorsal cut. Around that, then go ahead.
And if you don't want to tube the legs out, I always tell people like how the transition of the hair on the back of the front legs, they come to a point. Like if you're looking at it, looking forward, all that hair is going backwards and it all lines up together. You can cut down the back side of that in that armpit and run it back to your dorsal cut. So you're not having to try to fight the tubing it out if you want, because the elk's so big, you know what I mean? It's hard to freaking do all that on the elk. Mountain goats a little bit different because they're small, but if anybody's ever actually quartered an elk out, it sucks because you're on your knees trying to do all that and you can't just flip it around like you can a whitetail.
Yep. And so, no, I agree. So when you do that back leg, that's what I kind of wanted you to talk about. Some guys will do a dorsal cut and do a chest cut, which is not needed, right? You could do that, but there's a lot of cutting. So when I talk about tubing it, what I'm basically doing is literally just pulling the hide all the way out. Like, I don't want to say pulling a condom off, but literally, like, I'm pulling, like taking a shirt off over the head,
pretty much,
and just tubing out the legs all the way down. What you could also do, depending, you can take the cut and go up the back leg, and you're saying you could go up to the dorsal cut.
Yeah, you can do that. You want to stay away from anything from the brisket to the nose on the front of the hide. You don't want to cut any of that because you're just going to piss your taxidermist off.
Yeah, and if you're worried about going up and screwing that up, you can also just put a big ass cut up the back of the leg and tube it that way with some help with a relief cut. So
yeah,
and that helps you get the shoulder out of the hide where you can kind of yank it out with a little bit of room. But what can a taxidermist not fix?
What can he not fix?
Yeah.
Depends on what taxidermist it is. I've seen some taxidermists freaking sew a brand new nose on before and you never notice it. If they're good enough, if they know how to sew right and do all that, that's the biggest thing is just cuts. Like if there's cuts in the face or if you cut the back of the eye too much or, stuff like that. That's the biggest problem is the face. Anything on the body's not hard. You're just going to, they're going to make a hole. They're going to cut the hole a little bit more oval and then sew it back together where you can't see it. So you're never going to notice that. The biggest problem is just like your face. Like if you don't know how to skin the face out, don't skin it because you're probably going to screw it up. And the taxidermist is going to hate you for cutting a bunch of holes in the face and stuff like that.
Yeah. And the thing that I would add is don't put a ton of holes in your cape, but also if your buddy's helping you cape and he puts 3 holes in it, it's not the end of the world, just as long as it's not in the face.
No, it's not. Yeah.
But when you get to do the Y cut, when you're good at it, you go up from that dorsal cut, you go up, you stop before, and everybody has a little bit different, but stop a little bit before the base of the horns, and you make a Y. And you go left horn, right horn. Now, a lot of people say you need a screwdriver, whatever. Really, if you have a surgical blade and you know what you're doing, you don't need a screwdriver. You just cut around the pedicle little by little and go all the way around each horn from that Y cut. I didn't explain that well, but talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, the hair on the back of the neck will do the same thing like on the back of the legs. So, like, it almost shows you where the Y is. When you're coming up that dorsal and you're getting to the back behind those pedicles, a couple inches, if you're looking at it and the ear is left and right, they're in the same position. Just right above that in the middle of the neck, the hair makes another different transition where you can make that Y cut. Like you're saying, you cut to the left, cut to the right, and you get to the pedicles. And then I always make it easier. I'll just I'll start with one side and I'll skin it down around to where the ear is, and then you cut the ear off of the muscle of the ear off, and you'll see that ear hole in there. That gives you enough skin play where you can move it around while you're trying to cut around that pedicle. Because I've seen some guys come in from the top side of the pedicle, the hair side, and just barely slice into it. And you can. It takes a little bit of he's going to have to either add hair to that or build your pedicle to make it look right, so it's hiding where you cut the hair. But the best thing is to always keep your blade under the hide. Never come from the outside. Come from the underneath side when you get around that pedicle. And then, once you get past that, you got to if you're skinning the whole head out, you got to get down to the eyes. And that's the biggest thing where a lot of guys mess up is when they get to that eye, they always cut the eye too short, and it's always a big gash in the back side of the eye. So it's the best way to do that is get your finger on the eye and put your finger at the back corner of the eye so you can feel it when you're cutting it. So when you start cutting around that eye, you don't cut the eyelid off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. And so when I do this, and I'm not the world's best at this, this is the way I do it. I actually go up to the lips and I start at the mouth and split the gums around all the way around the mouth. Yeah, I do
that too, almost backwards. Yeah, yep. I do that too.
Give me some wiggle room, so I do that as far as I can go. And then I actually go to the pedicle, pedicles, whatever. And I do just like Levi said, I make the Y cut, and I either am coming from the side and underneath. So when I start to make the cut, I make that vertical cut from the pedicle down to my Y, I'll start to split it side going from the side around, like circumference. And then when I'm going upwards, I'm cutting from the bottom up towards the pedicle, just to give, so you're not fucking your taxidermist is what it boils down to. And it just makes for a better mount.
And you're going to want to cut the head off of the body to do that, because there's no way you're going to be able to manhandle an elk and flopping it around. You want to get the head off the body and scoot to the side and do that.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. So very important what he just said. And then what I'll do is when I'm back at base camp and the meat's taken care of or whatever, I'll lay that head on, if I'm going to clean the hide first, get some big chunks of meat off of it, get that kind of cleaned up, and then do what Levi and I are talking about, where the cape's laying there. And I just, whether it's a bighorn, stone sheep, goat, elk, doesn't matter. I just lay it out over my legs, and I've got a few surgical blades with me or a fixed blade that's very small, and go to town. The one thing I'd say to do is practice this on shitty deer, like cull bucks. Like,
100%.
Yeah, well, talk. I mean, people don't think about flush the face of a doe out. Like, do does. Like, practice on does as well, because fucking up that eye makes you look like you have. Remember that crazy eyes guy on Mr. Deeds, where his eyes were cut? Your fucking deer is gonna look like that if you're not careful. Like, you want to practice on does. Like, make sure and practice on deer you're not gonna mount, just to get better and more comfortable with it. I would say that probably one of the things, if you're in Oklahoma and you're going to hunt out west, you're in Texas, Kansas, you shoot does, practice the gutless method, practice flushing out a face, even though you shot it by the, hunting shack. When you get back, if you're going to go elk hunting, practice the gutless method and practice deboning on deer before you go. You don't have to gut the deer. You can debone them and practice flushing out the face on cull bucks and does to get good at it. That's what I've always told people. I mean, it sounds like you're agreeing with that.
The hardest thing when you go like the gutless method, like I've noticed people around here, like you're saying for whitetail hunters, is when you clean a deer, the gutless method is not hard. Like, it's not hard at all. The biggest problem that I've seen guys have, the biggest issue, is trying to get that inner tenderloin out with the gut still in it.
So,
if you can figure that out, you're doing all right. Everything else is easy. But I've got buddies that still can't do that. You know what I mean?
I did a video on this. It's on the Born Primitive Outdoor YouTube page. But the one thing that I would say is, if the deer's bloated, right, and its stomach's puffy, and what you do is you come in from below the spine, and I put my hand and push against the stomach to get room, in there. You can don't cut the tenderloin out with the same fucking knife you do this with, but poke the stomach and let air leak out, right? Like, guts aren't going to shoot all over Hell's Half Acre, right? Like, do a relief cut, and you can hear, it'll smell, and sounds like a fart. Empty the air out of that stomach if it's a little bit bloated, and get yourself more room to reach that tenderloin. But it's just a matter of taking your hand and pushing the stomach down to give yourself some room for that tenderloin. But you're right. I mean, it takes practice, but lots
of times the tenderloin, honestly, sometimes you can pull that tenderloin without even making a cut on it, and it'll come out.
As long as it's not an older deer, you can yank them damn near out, and you can get your hands in there and just basically knuckle it out of there. You can just move your fingers back and forth, and it detaches.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So, and you do enough of these, you get fairly good at it, right? So I've been lucky enough to do hundreds of, literally probably thousands at this point. But I forget what it was like when I first, had a, 500-pound elk on the ground, shitting my pants, right? I would say rub one out, guy or girl, whatever, like, calm down, eat something, and don't panic. It's not that big of a deal to take care of. No, not at all. Yeah, it's really not that bad. You just, have to have some common sense, about it. Probably, you weren't there when I shot my big bull. I told South and his guys, I was by myself, and I was like, hey, I'm a grown man, done this a ton. You guys keep hunting. I'll take care of the elk. Looking back, I probably should have kept one guy. That sucked. That sucked bad. That bull probably weighed 900 pounds. And they helped out a little bit at first, but I got it all taken care of in game bags and then packed it down to the trail. And, towards From where we camp, you can go up the valley or you can take the left. There's a trail going up that other valley.
Yeah.
I was at the end of that on top.
Okay. Yeah. You're way up in there. He's up in that top basin up in there.
Yeah. Yep. Kind of. Yep. To the left up on the hillside. You've been in there before. I've been with you in there. But, when I climbed it down to that trail, when I packed it down, again, I just took my time. I didn't stress about it or whatever. But when guys start, whether it's deboning or caping or whatever, just when in doubt, take your time. And then on the deboning thing, usually guys just get paranoid and start hacking away. There's lines on the muscle that you can see to debone it and not hack.
Yeah, you don't have to take everything off at once.
No.
Like take it off muscle, especially an elk. Like a whitetail, you can debone a whitetail shoulder or ham, and it's all in one piece. You don't have to take the muscle parts apart. But an elk, you've got a freaking huge, shoulder or a ham. You might as well take it apart in the muscle pieces and just throw it in your game bag. Like don't try to, if you can't do it, don't do it. Take it apart in pieces, because you're going to end up doing that when you go back to process it at your house, or if your processor has it, he's going to do the same thing anyway. He's going to pull all those muscle parts and separate them, and then do all this cutting on the meat like he wants.
Yep, 100%. So the biggest thing, obviously, like, again, practice on does and shit, right? Practice at your house. And there's a ton of videos and tutorials on this. The other thing, having some 550 cord with you if you're solo does help for tying a leg out of the way, or, whatever, like, just to give you, on an elk anyway, give you a little bit more room. Because like an elk, especially if it dies in a jacked up place, you got to be pretty innovative getting the parts and pieces off if it's wedged under a log or up against a tree or it's steep. But again, it's still not that big of a deal. It just takes a little bit longer.
No, it's not. It's not too hard. Like you said, just practice. That's the biggest thing. Practice on it, because if you don't know how to do it, there's a lot of men that come from, my area that go out there, and if they actually do kill one, they kind of freak out. Like, I never realized like how big it was and how much of a pain in the butt it was to tear that elk down. I'm just like, well, you should have known that. Like, it's kind of that's the end result. Like, that's what you're shooting for. So you should have been prepared for that.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Well, off the subject of taxidermy and hacking up. Oh, the other thing too, keep the meat clean, for the love of Christ. Like,
yeah,
you got to eat that shit, right? You're the one eating it. So
yeah.
If you're cutting up the meat, and I did a podcast about this with Cliff Gray the other day, animals on the ground, one of the first things I do, once take some photos, whatever, I look around, I find anything I can put the meat on as I'm cutting it off, if the bugs will cooperate. So if I've got big flat rocks around, letting the meat cool. If I've got logs without bark on it, I'll lay it on that, whatever. Like, have a plan. Don't just start hacking, pull a big punk of meat, and then walk around in circles trying to find out where to put it. Have kind of a plan where you're going to put the meat. If you can cool it down, if you can keep from just putting it straight into the game bag, let it lay out, let the wind hit it, let it cool off if that's an option, because the meat's going to taste better if you do that anyway. So it's something to think about. Some guys will carry like a little like Tyvek or a Mylar blanket or something. You can lay the meat on top of that as well.
That's handy to have that for sure.
Yeah. Well, getting off subject of that, on the video side of things, what got you into the videography? What got you into the filming hunts?
Man, growing up, I remember I was obsessed with watching Michael Waddell. And I remember and I tell people this, and it's the truth. When I was 12 years old, I was like, I'm going to have a hunting show. That's what I'm going to do for a living. I'm going to have a hunting show. I'm going to do this like Michael Waddell does. So that was my idol back in the day. And I don't idolize people anymore at all. But when I was 12, that was my idol. I wanted to have a hunting show like Michael Waddell. And then when Heart and Bow Hunter came around, Michael Hunsucker and all them guys, and great dudes. And when they kind of changed that industry, from my standpoint, from the whitetail and turkey side of things, seeing that real cinematic style of something, I was like, I'm going to do that. I want to tell stories. The older I got, because I play music too, so I love writing songs, but I love the artistic side of stuff. So I like creating that story behind something, and watching them make a story out of something, out of a deer hunt or elk hunt, whatever. I was like, man, that's freaking awesome. Like, I want to do that. So I bought a camera. Canon Rebel was my first camera that I bought. I bought that and started doing some video stuff. Me and my brother-in-law was filming our whitetail hunts back and forth. Just shitty video. You know what I mean? Didn't have a clue what I was doing. And we'd film some freaking does. The funny one is we started video and stuff, and we was like, all right, we're gonna make something of this. And we had a bunch of doe kills on video, and I videoed a couple does by myself, me shooting them. And we was whitetail hunting one day, and we had this tree stand set up, and I watched this buck do the same thing twice one day. And I was like, dude, we can kill that buck Saturday. Like, I know how to kill him. Like, we're gonna kill him. And he was videoing me. And honest to God, sketchy. We shouldn't have been in the trees we was in. We was in a tree about the size of maybe my thigh. And we had two trees tied together so the tree wouldn't bounce around, because it was the only tree we could get in. We had the trees tied together, tree stands right next to each other. Way too much weight to top this tree at 20 foot for as small as it was. And it was opening day of muzzleloader season here. And I was like, I'm going to carry my bow. And he's like, well, I'm going to carry my muzzleloader, because you can do that here. He's like, I'm going to carry my muzzleloader, and we'll do that. And if that buck hangs out too far like he did the other day, you can shoot him with a muzzleloader, and we'll still get it on video. I was like, all right, cool. I freaking rattled this buck in, and he comes right underneath us. He's 10 yards from us. And I'm looking at my brother-in-law. I'm like, are you ready? You ready? He's like, yeah. And he's got the camera. He's videoing it. I pull back, and I shoot this deer at like 15 yards. He runs out to 30 and falls over, just piles up. And I was like, fist pumping. This is the first buck we had on camera. We was fist bumping. And he said, man, I don't know what happened, but the camera shut off for a second, but I got it back on before he fell over. So I got it all on video. And I was like, what? I was like, no, you didn't get the kill shot on video. I said, the camera don't shut off when it's videoing. I said, it shuts off when you haven't pushed the record button. It'll shut off in about a minute on its own. So I got back on there, started looking at the review of it, and he didn't get any of the kill shot on video. All he got was the deer falling over. I was like, what the crap? Like, we have been trying this for a year now to get all this stuff on video, and with our work after that, all of our work schedule and stuff wasn't lining right. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to do whatever. And then that's when I met Lane through South's podcast. And I just reached out to him just for tips and stuff like that for video stuff. And then he got me hooked up with some guys in the industry, and I just started videoing for other people. Not anything that I thought I'd ever do. Like, I wanted to do it all for myself. And then I just ended up falling in place. It was God's timing is what it was. Just falling in place with other people and surrounding with some of the best hunting camps you could, and just kind of, I don't know, man, it just kind of fell into place from there. When I'd get a little bit more money, I'd buy a better camera and run with them. It was, the cool thing was when I got the video with Trevon, I videoed with Trevon for 2 or 3 seasons. And I did mostly his whitetail stuff with him and a couple of those like sand hills in Nebraska shooting mule deer. And that was real cool doing stuff like that. And I just started out just videoing, and then he hit me up one day and he was like, hey, you want to edit? You want to make one of the episodes? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it. I'll do it and then send it to you and you can fix it. And when I started editing, I was like, man, this is where it's at. Like, and especially like with South, when I got to start doing stuff with South, he just gave me free range. And then doing mostly all of Derek's films for 3 years, I would edit it and I'd send it to him, and he's like, dude, I'm like, I trust you, just do it. So like when I would make the storyline, that's what made it even better. So like for me, I don't mind going and videoing for people and just handing footage over, because it's cool too, because I'm just like, hey, I got to have fun, I videoed everything and I hand it over to you. But when I'm going into like a hunt, I'm gonna try to start creating a storyline in my head from the moment I start. You know what I mean? The day we start hiking in. And that's the cool side to me, is when I get to video it all, set up all these shots, do everything, and when I get back, I make that finished cut of the storyline and it all comes together. just kind of falls right back into what I wanted to do when I was 12. You know, like I wanted to have a hunting show. I just never had the money or the means to do all that. But getting to work with other people like y'all, man, it just like made a dream come true. And I've gotten to see so many amazing places in this country doing it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I, you know, the thing, variety wise too, you've been at 13,000 feet with South mule deer, and then, you know, whitetail, or, you know, it's a pretty broad spectrum of what you've gotten to see in video. And you know, it's definitely, you know, if you've never been out west and you come your first elk hunt, you probably screw everything up and don't even see an elk. But like, you know, it's cool to video it, especially if you're videoing in a good spot with people that know what they're, because you're into action. You may not get to hunt, but you're kind of hunting because you might as well have a weapon in your hand, because if you miss the, you know, if you don't get the footage, it's like missing the animal. So it's definitely something that I really admire, but I'm a photographer. I don't get into the video stuff that much.
Yeah. See, and I was kind of the opposite. I can take pictures, and I'm not bad at them. Lane's bad at. You and Lane are both badass at taking pictures. I never got into the huge side of the picture side just because I liked the storytelling behind the films. You know what I mean? That's what I love the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's you know, whatever, when we were figuring out hiring a, you know, camera guy for September, I had like a couple guys in mind. You were one of them. Is the biggest thing for me is, you know, I want a guy that can tell the story, that I don't have to pester, right? When I say that, meaning truly, like, I'm not going to tell you shit other than film the elk hunt and make it look cool and try not to make me look fat. Cause I mean, it's a big weight off the shoulders of me that I'm not, cause I've definitely had to kind of direct, films at times where, you know, what people want to see, what you want to catch, right? You know, what people, you know, what you want the video to look like. So, you know, other than seeing like your rough draft, that a huge weight off my shoulders.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, like for anybody that's, you know, if they're just getting into videoing and stuff like that, when you work with somebody, like go into it and be like, all right, what's the idea you're shooting for here? And then we'll get it along the way. Cause it's never going to be what you want it to be 100%. I mean, you're not getting to sit down like a movie and direct every moment. You got to be on the cuff and ready to do something. So like, just get the idea in your head with your client that they want, and then just hope and pray to God that you get the rest of it correctly. You know what I mean? I mean, like, what was it? It was last year, wasn't it? Yeah, last year when it was me and you and South and Steven. What was we, like 9 or 10 days in, and I'd gotten 1 or 2 elk on video because it was just a crappy year. You know what I mean? And I came to you because me and you were working on a film for it, and I just came to you and I was like, hey, I've had this idea for 5 years in my head to make a film just about South, and I have enough footage for Born Primitive in this with you and South and this and that. And I was like, man, I've been here for 10 days. There's no reason for y'all to pay me for 5 more days. I have everything I need to make a film. And we've had all of the years in the past to do it. And you're just like, hell yeah, that's fine. Like, take off. Cause there's not a reason to sit here and pay somebody a daily rate when you're not going to have any result. And y'all didn't. Y'all was there a couple more days and still didn't kill anything. Cause it was just a crappy year that year.
Yeah, and that film turned out good. I mean, I liked it.
It was fun though. It was cool. That was one of my favorite films to actually make. Like, that's the kind of stuff I like to make, is those stories, and get to tell that story about South. I mean, I know I've talked about South a lot, but he's one of the best guys that I know in this industry. And it's just like, to me, it was overdue. Like, I wanted that to come out and have that backstory of where he came from, and then getting to meet him and be with y'all and just enjoy the mountain and the you know, genuine character of who people are. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing too, is like, films are just the same as movies. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really get to see that character of people a whole lot. All you're seeing is what's created on a film. So that's the cool thing too, is with me getting to travel so much with different people, you get to pick out and weed out the ones that are good and the ones that are bad that you'll never work with again because they were straight jerks everywhere. Or guys like you and South and Derek, you get to hang out with them, and cool hunting camp, cool experience, and you don't have to worry about, getting yelled at or being felt like you're an idiot just because you're a cameraman or something.
Yeah, no, and I mean genuinely just it's just a good camp. It's fun, the whole crew. It's fun.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I mean, a lot of shit talking too, which is good. Because I mean, when you see people in the industry that are portrayed as never making mistakes, it's not it's not. At the end of the day, there's definitely something someone did, everyone, that you can make fun of, right? And I like to see that a lot more than hide that, right? Like, whatever, arrow falls off the rest, you shit your pants, you pick it, right? Like that's hunting, and hunting is not perfect, right? Especially a backpack hunt.
By no means. Yeah. Oh, 100%. So what else do you have besides the Wyoming elk hunt this year?
Man, I've got stuff up in South Dakota, a mule deer hunt. Probably that's another one. If you got time, have you film whitetail stuff. And I've never really had a whitetail hunt filmed. I mean, I killed a pile of whitetails, but I've never even tried to film one. I got a brown bear hunt coming up, and I might have you come on that one. They were talking about having Brandlin Shockey film that. I've got to kind of finalize that. The dates on that.
Alaska, you said?
Yep, Alaska. Yep. And then I may have another, that same area we hunted before, a elk tag, but I think South's going to go to one area, and if I get that elk tag, I'm going to go to another one. So whatever. As soon as I know if I have that tag, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah.
But
sounds good to me.
Cool, man. Well, we're about to hit an hour. Do you want people to pester you if they need a film done to get a hold of you, or are you trying to retire except for people like me?
No, I don't care. If it's something I don't want to do, I just tell them I don't want to do it. I never turn down business.
Well, where can they find you at?
I got to look at my Instagram page because that's the only one that I use. So yeah, it's just under my Instagram it's Mayfield Levi, or if you just look up Levi Mayfield, one of the two. You get on there, it's going to be mostly turkey stuff is what you're going to see. So you can't miss it. When you get on my page, you're going to see a crap ton of turkey hunting stuff because that's my number one passion. So you've got my page when you hit Levi Mayfield with all the turkey content. Gotcha. But yeah, you can hit me up there, message me, whatever. I'll talk to anybody.
Cool, yeah, and he can talk. I can tell you what. So you're good there. Well, dude, I look forward to the elk hunt with you. My buddy Chris, I was at because it's kind of it's his spot, and I was like, do you mind if we film this? And so yeah, it'll be Chris is a fucking cool dude, so it'll be a fun hunt and a fun trip. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Right. I'll try to lay off some of the beer so I'll be in a little bit better shape for you.
Got you right on, dude. Okay, cool. All right, dude. Well, I appreciate you hopping on, and I appreciate everybody tuning in.
All right, I appreciate it, buddy. Have a good one.
See ya.